here today with Stacy LaPointe. She's our guest speaker for the day, and Stacy is the owner of Companion Natural Pet Foods, and we've invited her here to speak about what's called a species-appropriate diet. Stacy, you've written about this idea of a species-appropriate diet. What exactly does species-appropriate mean?
It's just basically treating a dog and a cat naturally as carnivores. So offering them a diet that would imitate the prey animal concept, which is what they would get in the wild. They would eat prey animals. And so our diet is species appropriate in that it is not cooked, it is raw. It doesn't contain grains, which isn't natural to a carnivorous diet. Though dogs are opportunistic and will consume some vegetable matter out in the wild, cats are obligate carnivores and are strict and need animal protein. We use less vegetables in the cat food, but the dog food has, they're basically the same, meat, vegetables, and supplements.
Okay, so cats typically don't eat any vegetable matter whatsoever, but dogs can handle some.
Right, cats would get some stomach content of prey animals, which would be very minimal, and they will not survive without animal protein, whereas a dog could potentially scavenge and forage for quite some time without animal protein.
Okay. So when we have a species-appropriate diet, what does that provide that's missing in processed dog foods?
Well, raw food has all of its nutrients and enzymes intact, and so once you introduce heat, especially high levels of heat, which a lot of times extruded kibbles and canned foods are exposed to, you destroy enzymes and some of the nutrients, and that's why you have to add enzymes at the time of serving if you want to replace what's been lost. And then also, most kibbles and canned food have to deliver quite a bit of the vitamin and mineral premix to make up for anything damaged in the cooking process.
So the importance of enzymes, why is it so important to have enzymes in the food?
Well, as carnivores and being animals, they do not have digestive enzymes in their saliva, their digestion, they don't have molars to chew, whereas our food starts breaking down in our mouths. They are supposed to rip and tear and swallow, so it begins when it hits the stomach.
Swallow chunks whole.
Swallow chunks whole. And so the gastric juices, the pancreas is producing the enzymes to break down raw food, but that raw food is much easier to break down when it's intact if it's been cooked. If you add an enzyme at the time of serving, a digestive enzyme, you're helping the pancreas not have to work so hard to break that food down. So it's a good idea to add an enzyme to a cooked diet especially.
Okay, so I would imagine that if you're adding enzymes to this cooked diet, you're going to basically take care of your animal's digestive system. It's not going to have to work so hard, which for older animals particularly could be very, very important.
Absolutely, for us as well. Aging animals, including humans, produce less and less of the enzymes necessary to break down foods, and they will get a lot more nutrition from their food as well. That's a huge part of it, is more nutrition is available for the uptake by the time it reaches the small intestine.
Okay. Now, Stacy, the foods that you brought contain some bones in them.
Yes.
A lot of us have the understanding that bones are hard, if not impossible, to digest. Why then would this food contain bones, and what form are they in to help digestion?
Well, these bones are the whole birds. This is the turkey cat food, just as an example. Whole turkey parts are used and ground up, and so the bones are raw, and for a carnivore, they are digestible, because if they were to eat if a cat caught a bird, it would crunch a lot of the bones up. A mouse, they would eat almost the entire mouse. So they get hair and bones along with the meat, and that has several different reasons. Mainly, it's their source of calcium and minerals, but it also has a bulking. It tends to dry and bulk the stool, so it makes a natural way to eliminate waste.
So kind of what vegetables do for us,
exactly.
The bones and the hair do for the cats and the dogs.
Right.
Got it. Got it. Why don't you show us a sample of this food?
This is still frozen. I didn't have quite enough time to thaw it, but when it does thaw, it's the consistency of hamburger.
Okay.
There are a few vegetables. You can see bits of greens and carrots and such in there. But for the most part, it's just fresh raw meat and bones that have been ground up and packaged and then frozen. So you just thaw it out and put it in the dish and feed it. There's nothing required.
Other than the grinding and the packaging and the freezing, there's really no processing that happens to this food.
Correct. It's just whole raw vegetables and meats that have been washed and ground and mixed with some supplements and then packaged and frozen. So it's minimally processed.
Yeah, which I'm sure is much better for the animals.
Absolutely.
Stacy, I've heard that every raw food contains enough enzymes to provide for its digestion. What's your thought on that?
I would probably agree, but since we don't know the health and the status of every animal, I don't think it can hurt to add an enzyme. And in fact, most enzymes, well, several of them now come with a probiotic. And I think introducing the probiotic or the friendly flora into the intestine can also help boost the immune system and allow the animal just overall health and accelerated healing and such.
Sure, and again, particularly with elder animals, I would say this would probably be a good thing for them to add some enzymes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you've got both cat food and dog food.
Right. The dog food comes in, the cat food comes in 1 pound or 2 pounds.
Okay.
And then we also have, the dog food comes in 2 pounds, or we have an 8-pound bucket, which I forgot to grab.
That's okay.
Anyway,
so when we begin to feed our dogs and our cats a species-appropriate diet, what are some of the changes that we might anticipate in them?
well, it depends a lot on the age of the animal and what the animal has been eating. If it's a young animal, the changes may not be real noticeable because you already have a real healthy looking and acting animal. If your animal's more middle-aged and has been eating, say, a dry food, especially the same dry food its entire life or for several years, you will probably notice if you get the animal switched to raw food exclusively, in a matter of a couple of weeks, they might experience some detoxification, or the body may go through a healing crisis where it's ridding itself of the non-nutritive substances that have collected or accumulated in the cells of the tissue and body tissues and organs and skin. So that could, my comment on that is sometimes things get worse before they get better.
Sure.
So you may see flaky skin, some yeasty ears, some goopy eyes, potentially some vomiting and some mucus stools, some looser stools. That should pass. It is actually kind of a good sign to see the animal going through that. A lot of people give up at that point. They feel that it's the food that's making the animal sick, and that's not the case. So I always encourage people, just stick it out, maybe back off a little bit. You can introduce raw food gradually by reducing the amount of the food you're currently feeding, and then increasing the raw, and then you should see those signs go away. Now, once an animal has been eating raw food exclusively for, say, a few months, usually if the animal is middle-aged and has had some health issues, whether it be allergies or chronic ailments, the results are pretty amazing. In most cases, allergic symptoms will be dramatically alleviated, if not completely eliminated altogether. Smaller, less frequent stools or stool volume and coat, sometimes they'll completely shed out and regrow a new healthy coat. They'll also have more energy. They'll be more relaxed. Even if you have a hyper high-strung animal, a lot of times they can be more relaxed because it's simply a quality of life. Their body chemistry changes and they feel satisfied psychologically that they're getting what they need. So there's a lot of benefits to it for healthy and sick animals.
And I've heard and I've studied that deficiencies of particularly minerals and B vitamins, which are not found in usable types and quantities in processed food, can create anxiety conditions. And of course this food would have all of the B vitamins from the vegetables and the meats, and contains the types of minerals that are very easily assimilated by the animal.
Absolutely, and we put in kelp, organic kelp, which is a really good source of trace minerals, which may not be found in our foods as much these days.
Great. Well, Stacy, any parting advice about feeding our dogs?
I would just say please learn to read labels and just know that whatever food you're choosing, you feel good about it, and that make sure that your animal is not, allergic to something, suffering from ailments that you think are normal, when in reality they can be alleviated because they deserve a good quality of life.
Okay, great. Thanks for coming to Dog Talk today.
Sure.
It's been great having you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.